Today we are going to look at the Temple of Esna in Egypt, because here I noticed something very interesting again. So let's go right into it. Here we see Egypt and the Nile River, and the city of Esna is located between Luxor and Aswan, approximately 50 kilometers south of Luxor. And as you can see, it is located right on the banks of the Nile. And it is also a popular stop for Nile cruise ships because it's a beautiful visit and it's only a 3 to 5 minute walks from the banks of the Nile to the temple. The temple is located right in the middle of the city, or rather the city was simply built on top of it or around it over the centuries. And once you walk from the banks of the Nile towards the temple, you first come through a small shopping street where they sell souvenirs and stuff. And the first thing you immediately notice when you reach the temple is that this structure lies approximately 10 meters below the current ground level of the city of Esna, which is quite interesting in itself. So let's take a look at this whole thing. We're going down there now. And here you can see the ticket counter. It makes you wonder actually what is older, the temple or the wooden box where they put the money for the tickets. Alright, let's take a look. So strictly speaking, the Temple of Esna is not really a temple. And what we see today is called the Hypostyle Hall. And the actual temple is no longer visible today. It has been completely destroyed. And the only thing that remains is this Hypostyle Hall, which has been built in the 1st century AD in the Roman period. It is assumed that the original temple, which once stood behind this building that we see today, that this has been built in the 2nd century BC, in the so-called Ptolemaic period. And this Hypostyle Hall that we are looking at today, it has been built only a few hundred years later, and this building is truly extraordinary. It is really breathtaking. Inside you can still see many colors, some original, some have been restored. And as far as I know, it was the University of Tübingen from Germany which was occupied with the restoration of this Hypostyle Hall for the recent years. And they did a great job. It looks so nice. And this Hypostyle Hall contains of 24 columns, and 18 of them are freestanding inside this room. And as you can see, they are beautifully decorated from top to bottom. And I believe the top part represent various flowers or plants. And the lower part of the columns is completely covered with hieroglyphs and reliefs. And this is quite interesting because this is actually a ritual that is written on these columns. And it is the only fully preserved religious ritual that one can still read in its original form from the columns of this temple here in Esna. And it is a ritual in honor of the god Khnum, the ram-headed god. And these columns are completely covered with prayers, sayings, and enchantments and songs to honor the god Khnum. And the visitors go around these columns, and while they go around these columns, they read off these texts. And the columns will then even guide you to the next column. Yeah, then imagine like at the end of the first column, it says something like, okay, now you pass on to the column to your left, or, you know, it guides you through the whole building. And this ritual lasted an entire day. And it was all about singing and praising to the god Khnum and offering him sacrifices. And this particular ritual or this festival was only for women. It was a kind of fertility ritual. And male priests were completely excluded from this ritual at that time. So the women of the town of Esna carried out this ritual, and in the end of this festivity, they brought into the temple the potter's wheel of life. And this potter's wheel was carried into a temple by the women on a barge, because the god Khnum is associated with this potter's wheel of life. And he basically metaphorically forms humanity on his potter's wheel. And that's a very interesting detail, because in the Bible, God is also referred to several times as a potter. If anyone has more knowledge about this topic, please feel free to write it in the comments. I would be very happy to learn more about this. And now let's look at the exterior of the temple, because as I said, I noticed something very interesting there. And here on this wall relief, you can see Emperor Domitian, how he is likely to have one of his enemies executed or punished before the god Khnum. Yeah, there we see Khnum standing there. And this is also very interesting, because people tend to associate Romans or Roman emperors always directly with Christianity and later religions. But at least initially, they also followed these ancient Egyptian cults and religions. And yeah, now we come to the truly mysterious part of this video. Because here I noticed another shaft that goes straight down. And as I explained before, this hypostyle hall stands around 10 meters below the current ground level of the city of Esna. And yeah, it seems like there is much more underneath there. And this is really strange, because I read all the publications and research documents from the University of Tübingen and the University of California and others, and nowhere they mention anything about what is underneath this temple. Yeah, these kind of shafts and tunnel systems are not mentioned. And I couldn't find anything about these shafts and about what is under this temple. And I find this very strange. There are many interesting PDFs and documents out there about all these wall reliefs and how they refurbished everything. But nobody talks about that there appears to be a huge underground facility under this temple. And we'll go to the other side of this building in a moment, because there are more of these shafts where we can get a little closer. And there you can really hear like huge masses of water rushing down there. And this is something we've repeatedly encountered in our past videos in Egypt, whether it's the pyramids or temple complexes. They are always standing on top of older subterranean structures, in my opinion. And we will take a closer look also at the foundation of this building in a moment. And you can see that it looks like that they built on top of a much older structure. And I read also that they found evidence that there was something going on here already in the 18th dynasty, in the time of Pharaoh Thutmose III and Amenhotep II. So me personally, I believe there is much more down there to discover. And I can tell you it's something big down there. We will take a look at it in a bit. And here we see again an interesting wall relief with Thoth the Atlantean and Horus. And behind it stands the goddess Sekhmet, I believe. And it seems like as if a person is undergoing some kind of initiation ritual or something like that. But of course, here we can only speculate. And yeah, here you can see again this shaft that has been covered here right in front of the temple. Quite large in diameter also. And it probably goes down very deep. And now you can actually hear these water masses rushing down there. Listen to this, guys. Can hear the water. Can you hear it? yeah, there must be a giant ancient tunnel system down there. And I believe we can also rule out that this is a modern sewage system or something like that. And please let me know in the comments if you have an idea how we can explain this. But me personally, I have no convincing explanation for this. And really, I don't think that we can simply dismiss this as a modern sewage system, because what city planner would do something like that to dig a sewage system under an ancient temple that is thousands of years old? And I highly doubt that such projects even exist in Egypt. And as you can see on the satellite view of the city of Esna, they just built their city on top of it. Yeah? And the temple had to be re-excavated only fairly recently because they didn't give a damn. And yeah, that is really something that raises many questions. How does this sewage system get under this temple? How can we explain this? And why does nobody talk about this? Why is this not mentioned in any of these scientific publications about the Temple of Esna? I find this very strange. And yeah, here we see again how the Roman emperor had his enemy executed before the god Khnum. One could also say that it might be a kind of human sacrifice ritual for the god Khnum, who knows? And yeah, as I said, the old temple supposedly once stood behind this building. And the only thing that I could find about this is an old drawing from a book. And here you can see how it probably looked like. Yeah, the ancient temple was behind this Hypostyle hall that we see today. And here outside we also have a collection of stone artifacts, which I found very intriguing. And they probably found all of these during the excavations and they put them together here like a little exhibition. And most of them are actually made of red granite, especially those cylinders lying around there. And I think some of these bowls that we see here are also made of granite. And the one here that we see with the two handles, I believe is made of basalt, if I remember correctly. And over there, these cylinders, they're all made of red granite. I have no idea what purpose they once served. If anyone knows what these are, please write it in the comments. And what's also interesting, the entire complex is surrounded by this very old mud brick wall, which we are looking at here. And these type of mud brick walls can be seen almost everywhere in Egypt. I have noticed them many times that they are surrounding the ancient temples. And in most cases, these mud brick walls look way older than the temples itself. Here we have some statues of Hathor. There you can see the head with the face of Hathor. And here we have some more interesting stone artifacts. Some of them, they look like a square basin or like a sink. And on the left and right, they have some circular cavities there. It almost looks like if it's meant to maybe mix some liquids together. My wife once mentioned that perhaps these were like sacrificial altars where they sacrificed animals and then the blood flowed into this middle part. Who knows? I have no idea what these are supposed to be. If you guys know, please write it in the comments. I have no idea what we're looking at here. It's really nice, no? When you look at all these objects and you imagine what purpose these things served. Very fascinating. And here we have another statue of Sekhmet. I think this must be the goddess Sekhmet. And here we'll take a quick look at the foundation. Do you see that? It looks like we have at least 2 different foundations here. It's hard to say, but I think we can already assume that there might be a much older facility down there. And I also find it strange that the excavation stops there. I mean, Don't they want to see if there is more down there? Yeah, and then we go up again. I will be soon again in Egypt, and I think I will take another look at the city of Esna, because I somehow have a feeling that there is much more to discover in this city. If you have any ideas or suggestions for the next visit in the city of Esna, please let me know. Yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick video about the Temple of Esna. As always, thank you so much for your time. If you like to support our work, you can find the PayPal link in the description. Have a wonderful day and see you in the next video. Ciao!